NFL season is right around the corner, and I'm happy to be joined by Darren Urban, Arizona Cardinals senior writer. Has been a beat reporter for them since 2000, working his 23rd season covering the Cardinals. Not a better writer out there to talk Cardinals football. Thank you so much for joining, Mr. Urban. How's it going in the Valley?
It's good. I'm actually right now. I'm in the hotel in Nashville as the team finishes up. It's they did a joint practice with the Titans, and then they have a game Saturday night against the Titans. So it's been a long week.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm definitely looking forward to that game tomorrow. What would you say the Cardinals are going to be looking for in that game for any roster spots and stuff like that?
It's going to be interesting. I think they've taken a very let's keep everybody healthy kind of approach to the preseason. So the guys playing tomorrow are the guys that either aren't going to be around here or might be fighting for those last couple spots. I have a feeling they have a pretty good idea who their 53-man roster is going to be already. You might have a couple spots, maybe at the back end of the cornerback room or the outside linebacker room, maybe offensive line, that this will mean something. But I think for the most part, I think Cliff Kingsbury and his coaches have a pretty good idea of what they want to do.
Yeah, that's good to hear with the final weekend of preseason here. And down here in Houston, obviously, would love to hear about how our former Texan greats, J.J. Watt and Deandre Hopkins. So I'll start with J.J. How was J.J. looking in training camp before he unfortunately got COVID? Because I really hope he has a great season ahead and he can get after the QBs this season.
I think JJ was looking like JJ, and he's still a very good player. I think this team needs him very much to stay healthy because he is one of the few veterans, experienced veterans on that defensive line. And he got hurt in the seventh game last year and didn't come back till the playoffs. And I think that absolutely impacted how they played on defense and also what he brings to the locker room. So I think if JJ can stay healthy, I think that would be a huge deal for this team. DeAndre Hopkins, unfortunately, as you know, he'll be suspended the first 6 games for violating the performance enhancing drugs policy.
Mm-hmm.
He hasn't practiced a ton, in part because they know he's not going to play right at the beginning of the season, and they had other guys to get ready. But when he has practiced, he looks to me as good as he always has. And now it's just a question of waiting for him because obviously this team can very much use him.
Yeah, great points there. Obviously, the Cardinals would definitely love to have a healthy JJ on that D line. And D Hop, I've saw some highlights of his in training camp. He's made some really great catches. So, like you said, he's definitely looking like himself out there. Hopefully, he'll be good after 6 games, and we'll see him out on the field. But we do think he needs to step up among the Cardinals receivers to kind of make up for his absence in those first 6 games. Obviously, it's hard to make up for his production entirely. No Christian Kirk this year as well, but you got Marquise Brown from Baltimore. Andy Isabel's been looking pretty good. So you think one of those two guys would have to up it, probably?
I think it's going to be a combination of a lot of guys. I mean, obviously, I think a lot more falls on Hollywood Brown with DeAndre out, but they're hoping that Rondale Moore will take a big step forward.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to be kind of stepping into the role that Christian Kirk had, and I think both he and the team believes that he can make a big impact. They still have AJ Green,
Yeah.
and I think Zach Ertz is going to be a big time receiver for this team, even though he's a tight end. He's
Mm-hmm.
somebody who could flex out, and I think they believe he can have a really big year. So it's going to be kind of like, hey, let's fill in for Hop by committee, and we'll see how that goes over 6 games. A very difficult first 6 game schedule.
Yeah, for sure. Starting off with the Chiefs in the opener, that's going to be a really great game. Looking forward to that as well. Really good two offenses going at it. What would you say you're looking forward to the most about the season opener?
Well, I mean, obviously, just getting to the regular season and seeing one of the best quarterbacks. I think by the time it's all said and done, one of the best quarterbacks ever, and Patrick Mahomes is a big deal. But for us, this is going to be the first time that Cliff has been able to go against Patrick Mahomes in a regular season game. Obviously, Patrick played for Cliff in the regular season or in college. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
and I enjoy that portion of the competition. Both of them. Both of them are going to want to win anyways, but
Yeah.
that both of them will really embrace the idea that, hey, maybe I can top my guy in this game.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely looking forward to that. Should be a really fun game to open up the season. But one thing about this Cardinals team, in my opinion, is that they have talent on both sides of the ball. The offense with Kyler and James Conner, all the great receivers, Zach Ertz. But on defense, you have some really good talent like Marcus Golden. You have Isaiah Simmons and Buda Baker. What's really stood out to you about this defense so far?
Well, I mean, there's a couple different things. I'm excited to see Isaiah Simmons is playing a little bit differently than he has in the last couple of years.
Mm,
He seems to embrace it quite a bit. So I'm excited for what he might be able to show that way. And I think he's got a chance at one of his breakout seasons. Marcus Golden had a nice year last year. They had Chandler Jones at the time. He always sees himself as a number one pass rusher, but now they're going to need him to be that guy without another guy on the other side to really scare the other team. So I'm curious to see how that works out. But I think the biggest thing right now is, what do they do at cornerback? Uh, they're somewhat thin there after Byron Murphy. There's a
mhm.
lot of talk that they're going to add somebody either by trade or by signing. And obviously, when you're playing Patrick Mahomes in
Yeah.
the first week, and you got to play Russell Wilson, and you got to play Justin Herbert, and you got to play the 49ers and the Rams. I mean, you want to make sure your pass defense is going to be able to hold up. So that's something that's worth watching beyond just the last preseason game.
Yeah, great points there. Facing that loaded schedule in the beginning, going to need some corners there. Hopefully, we'll see them make some moves. But you also made a great point there about how they need to get some pass rush. Chandler Jones need to try and make up for his presence. So hopefully, they'll be able to figure it out on the defensive end. But really, lots of stories in this offseason about Kyler Murray. Got his new contract extension. Um, all that talk's been going on for quite a bit, but it was good to see that get finished. He has the highest annual average of quarterback at 46.1 million. So, what was it like covering that situation and kind of being around that?
It was interesting. It was an interesting off season starting all the way back to I was on at the airport. Um, I was at the airport going to the scouting combine when Kyler's agent dropped his memo on Twitter, the big long one that basically said that Kyler wanted a new contract and it needed to be now,
Mhm.
which made for an interesting combine and it made for an interesting offseason. And then of course they get it done, and then there was all the talk about the quote unquote homework clause, which was
Yeah.
really interesting.
Mhm.
I think ultimately they're glad that's all in the rearview mirror. It did make the first week of training camp feel like it lasted 3 weeks and not 3 days, but I think Kyler's in a good place. I think his comfortability is that much more like any of us would be if you knew you're going to be someplace long term. Oh, and by the way, you also got paid a really large amount of money. So
Mhm.
I think he's in a good place there, and we'll see how it translates. I mean, he's still only one guy on the field, obviously the most important player, but not the only player. So there's going to have to be some things that come together. But I think locking up Kyler was a big deal.
Yeah, I agree with that. Good to see him there for the long term. And one thing I hope is that the Cardinals can translate their success throughout the season, not just at the beginning of the season. But I heard about Cody Ford and that offensive line might need some additional help. What's the story behind that? And where do you think they need to improve in the offensive line?
Well, I think they were pretty confident in what the starting offensive line was going to look like, and
Hmm.
I think they were pretty confident in maybe some of the depth they were going to be able to have. But then they had a bunch of guys get banged up,
Right.
and I know they liked Cody Ford quite a bit when he was coming out of college. They had a chance to go get him. They have some extra picks because they have like 3 comp picks because of the free agent losses,
Okay.
and I think it just made sense for them to go get him and kind of solidify what's there. Now, I think if everybody's healthy, I think he's just a really good backup for you right now. But if he has to play, you're confident because he's got a bunch of starts in this league that
Hmm.
he'd be able to do it.
Yeah, I hope so. Definitely need some depth on that offensive line. Unfortunate to see those injuries, but I'm attending the University of Houston, and Josh Jones, he also went to UH, and he's part of that O line there. Do you think he might be able to get involved this season quite a bit?
That's an interesting question. I think they really like the progress of Josh Jones, but I also know that they really like Kelvin Beachum, his veteran presence, and
Yeah.
just kind of how he handles things. So my guess would be that Josh Jones will end up, at least for this season, continue to be the backup tackle. He could go in either place if either DJ Humphries or Kelvin Beachum got hurt. But I think his days to start are still in the future a little bit, maybe next year, depending on what all happens with the contract of Kelvin Beachum. But like I said, they feel like he's made some progress, but it has not been enough to knock Beachum out of the starting lineup.
Yeah, I agree with that, and really hope that he'll be there for the future and hope to see him get some starts then. But I really want to get a sense of what the feeling is like for this team in the Valley this season. What's kind of like the expectation for the Cardinals, and what do the fans think they can accomplish this season realistically?
That's an excellent question. I think, last year they started 7-0 and 10-2, and I think there were a lot of deep playoff runs going through everybody's head, whether it was inside the team or outside the team in the fan base. Obviously, that did not happen. Um, you know, I think the expectation is they need to be in the playoffs. Now, whether that happens or not, we'll see. I think, again, I want to see what this defense looks like, particularly, and I want to see how the offense can handle it without DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah.
Because they could, being on 6 games, you could fall in quite a hole right out of the box without your best receiver, and that's going to make it really tough, even if he comes back and plays excellent. So, I think realistically, this team absolutely has a chance at a playoff berth, and I think if everything went right for this team and a couple things happened to the Rams, I think they would have an outside chance to win a division. But I'm not, you know, I think right now it's only fair to say the Rams got to be the favorite. They're the Super Bowl team. They have a lot of their key guys back. But if uh, this team needs to be in playoff contention. I don't know if they're going to get there or not, but they need to be in that fight because I think that's what everybody wants and everybody expects.
Yeah, I agree. I think the team is has that amount of talent, and hopefully they can continue that kind of success. I've seen them; they start off really good, but then they kind of cool down as the season goes on. So if they can continue to be good throughout the season, and obviously without DeAndre, hope they can kind of make some adjustments. And I think definitely they should be in the mix of things this year, and hope they can make it far this season. But tell me a little bit about. I want to hear about how you got started with the Cardinals and because you've been covering the team for a long time since. So I want to hear about that journey really quick.
Basically, I went to college to be a journalist, be a sports writer. Got into newspapers when I graduated in '92, and did that all the way through 2007. And in 2000, I was lucky enough to get the Cardinals beat for the newspaper I was working with, and covered them for 7 seasons. And then after the 2006 season, they approached me and wanted to talk to me about potentially coming over to their website. And at the time, newspapers were people were wondering about their future. Obviously, in hindsight, it was not going to be good for newspapers, so it was a good move on my part. But it worked out. I came over here in 2007. I've been working for them ever since, and I like to believe that even though I work for a team, that I provide a lot of really good information. If you're following the Cardinals, even though I don't necessarily work for a third party, so it's a dream job. I've always wanted to be a sports writer, and I've been very lucky to be able to do this. And we'll see where it goes. Hopefully, I've got a number of years left.
Yeah, I think you're doing a really great job, and I'm also really appreciated that article that you wrote when I had my interview with JJ. Obviously, JJ said a lot of great stuff, but the way you kindly mentioned my name was I really appreciate that, and I
Well, you deserved it. You got the interview. I mean, the one thing about journalism that everybody should be following is if somebody gets an interview, that guy should or woman should be getting credited. You absolutely nailed it, and that was a great interview. And I had no problem mentioning you because again, you deserved it.
yeah, I really appreciated that, and I actually have it printed out, and it's in my room. It's on the wall, so um, that was a great moment. But last thing here for you, I want to hear about what's your favorite thing about Arizona and living there.
Well, I've been here a long time. My family moved there when I was 6 back in 1976, and there's a lot of growth in the valley since then. It looked a lot different in 1976 than it does now.
Yeah,
I'm a big fan of. I mean, it gets really hot here, which
yeah,
you're in Houston, so you're probably like, oh, well, I don't care because we got heat and humidity.
yeah.
It does get hot here, but I would say that, you know, when you live in the valley, all you got to worry about is the heat. You don't have to worry about tornadoes or hurricanes
Mhm.
or earthquakes, or you just have to get into a really hot car and drive around sometimes. And
Yeah.
I appreciate you don't have to shovel sunshine, and that's something we say around here, and there's no doubt that that's true.
Great to hear that. And Mr. Urban, really appreciated the time today. And I really enjoyed talking about the Cardinals and really hope they have a good season. Definitely a fan of them as well. So really appreciate the time. Thank you so much.
I appreciate the invitation and having you think of me with all the all-star lineup that you normally have for interviews. I was pretty honored that you asked me, so thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate it. You do a great job. And hopefully you can give this interview a retweet once I put it out there. So thank you so much.